Howdy, how's it going? Welcome to my channel, Jessica in Progress. My name is Jessica, and today we're going over my October reads. I was sick basically the last 2 weeks of October, which kind of sucked because Halloween was terrible for me. But we've got some pretty good books that we read this month, so let's go ahead and start off with The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Now, I read this basically in a day on October 1st. I really enjoyed this book. It is about this girl who grew up, her family owns like a funeral morgue not morgue. Her family owns a funeral parlor and they do like the embalming and they do, you know, the burying and the funeral parlor and all of that. And they're weird and creepy and they're almost Addams Family, but like not really. Our girl has left. She is a ghostwriter for a romance author. Basically, like, picture Nora Roberts. She's like the ghostwriter for Nora Roberts for some reason. Anyway, she is writing the fourth and final book of her contract as a ghostwriter for this girl, for the major author. But unfortunately, she went through a terrible breakup and no longer believes in love. So she's having a really hard time trying to write this novel. Now, she gets a new editor, walks in, oh my god, he's hot, insta love. That's my only complaint. It's oh my god, he's hot, insta love. I think this is also the book that went, oh my god, he's hot. That, or it might have been My Roommate. No, that was My Roommate's a Vampire. So it did do a little bit of that. Anyway, her dad dies really early. So she goes with her non-extension to her romance novel that she has not written at all, back to her small town funeral parlor for her dad's funeral. Goes through all of the family trauma baggage. But guess who shows up? Her new editor's ghost. Oh no. So she's also a medium. Did I say that? She's a medium, as was her dad. The rest of the family, not so much. But you know, so she goes around the entire town trying to figure out why her new editor that she's only met like twice, is dead and has traveled to a different state to be there with her. Okay, now there are some weird things going on, there are some cute things going on, and then we have this whole like falling in love with a ghost thing going on. It's really cute. I absolutely loved it. I am all for a spooky little romance, so if you have any more spooky little romance recs, go ahead and put them in the comments down below. Like, X-Hex is still on my TBR. I see it in my indie bookstore every time that I go, and I'm just like, I should get it. And I don't know why I haven't, but I haven't. So if you have any cute little romance things that are kind of spooky or like Halloween-y, I would love those. Anyway, I gave this like a 5 stars. I loved this. This is gonna go into my like little romance reread pile. Like, I loved this. It was so good. It was so cute. And I read it in a day. So any flaws aside from me absolutely calling the ending and the oh my god, he's hot insta love, I didn't catch because I read it in a day and I didn't like study it or anything. I just ate it up like cute little spooky cupcake. Anyway, next one. We read We Spread by Ian Reid. Now, this is a very interesting book. Much like his other one that I read, I'm thinking of ending things. Now, We Spread follows an artist, older lady, Penny. She is very old. She's going into an old people home because she can no longer live on her own. She slipped and fell changing a light bulb. Okay, now it goes through the horror of dementia, and you are in Penny's head the entire time. So part of you is like, is this dementia or is this real? And it goes through the paranoia that people go through when they're suffering through dementia. And to me, dementia is like the scariest thing that I could ever experience. My great aunt is currently going through dementia, so this like really hit home for me a little bit. It's something that I kind of want to tell my mom to read, but I don't know if she would I mean, I think she would enjoy it. She's a horror movie person. And she also deals with elderly people all the time. I really love this. It's a small cast of characters, and you really are kind of with Penny the entire time being like, is this real? Or is this like what's going on here? When is the shoe gonna drop? Like, you were just waiting for it to be like, confirm that her paranoia was correct. I really liked this. If you have problems with dementia in old people, like, don't read this. But if you want to, like, know the struggles, or you have someone going through dementia, this might be, like, I'm not gonna say that it's their experience exactly, this one, but like, there is an extreme paranoia that comes with, you know, forgetting your entire memory and all of that. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I don't know what I rated these things. I'm just gonna say that I liked it, and we're gonna stop with the stars unless I remember. Bam, I liked it. Next one, we picked up A Haunting on the Hill by Elizabeth Hand. Now, this is the first authorized return to Hill House by Shirley Jackson. So before I read this, I reread Haunting of Hill House. I actually listened to it this time in the background while working. So I didn't pay as much attention. I was just using it as like a refresh before returning to this. That was probably a bad move on my part, because this is not as good as Hill House, but I absolutely love Hill House, and I love everything that happens with it. I've loved pretty much everything with Hill House, like even I love the show too, despite the fact that we reframe it from a feminist narrative to, you know, family. Like, I love don't get me wrong, I love the depiction of family grief and how they go through grief and all of that in the show, but like the book being like a feminist, I am a young girl trying to become a woman, but I've always been like trampled down by everyone because, you know, and also maybe slightly a little queer, like, is good. If you haven't read Hill House by Shirley Jackson, I super suggest you do. I've been told by other people that Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle is one of her best works, so I'm planning on picking that one up soon. Don't ask me why I haven't yet. I don't know. Just haven't been in the mood for it because it's been hyped too much. Much like I hyped this one way too much for what it was, and it was not good. Not even as like a adaptation, like, I just did not think that it was good. If you want something like this but better, like, read Writing Retreat. Just reread Hill House. This follows our cast of 4 people, okay? All of them unlikable. None of them have any redeeming qualities. They are producing a play. Our main girl is like the main writer of the play, and she got this grant that allows her to rent the house, Hill House, because she saw it and was like, ooh, perfect place for my witch play. Because it's a play about a witch. They find Evelyn, who lives in a trailer park just outside, and there's this weird thing going on with the hares. Now, I was like, I don't remember the hares being any part of regular Hill House. There are mentions of big hares in regular Hill House, but on the House on the Hill, it's the major feature. One thing that I will say that I really liked about this is how it depicted the house aging as time continued. So it's like someone came in and tried to paint this, but they did it badly and didn't take off the wallpaper, so the paint is bubbling and the wallpaper's peeling. Someone brought in their modern 80s stuff into the living room, so now it looks super different from everything else because it's modern 80s, but it also has one of the old original chairs. Or like the game parlor no longer has the pool table because the current owner needed to sell it off for money. So I like how the evolution of the house has changed as it's passed hands throughout the years and how time has aged. That is pretty much the only good thing that I can say about this book, though, because it sets up a lot of things that we could work with but then don't. Like, our elder actor apparently maybe pushed her co-star off of a catwalk, but she swears that she didn't push him. The dude was just afraid of heights and fell himself. So that could be interesting tension about not trusting everyone who's working with her or everyone working with her not trusting her, especially because she's also, you know, kind of an alcoholic. We also have our main girl who swears that the play is only hers, even though her girlfriend is supplying all of these like murder songs or something to them, and there's so much lyric, so much singing. Like, I've heard that the audiobook is really good because she does really good with the songs, because there's so many songs, you needed someone good with the songs. But we have, you know, the girlfriend who is writing all the songs, who swears that she is helping with the play and therefore it is our play, not your play, who also kind of slept with their best friend who's also coming and being the devil in the play. And he, you know, goes back and forth about whether or not he wants to, you know, take advantage of them all being cramped up together and, you know, continue on with their little love affair. He also does like this miniature puppet thing, which is interesting. So there's like a lot of things that we could play with here. A lot that we could play with here, but we don't do anything with. Like, them cheating doesn't mean anything. What's her face, like, maybe potentially tossing her co-star off of the catwalk doesn't mean anything. The tension of who's actually writing the play and who's in charge of it doesn't mean anything. Like, we don't do anything with it. And instead of it being a psychological thriller like Hill House was, this becomes actual full supernatural, like, the house is haunted, it is the house, it is only the house, it is not your mind, it is the house. Like, and I didn't like that. It's very flawed. The play itself, like, if the play that they were writing also made a bit of sense, it probably would have done a little bit better. Granted, we weren't having actual excerpts like we were with the writing retreat, but it was still so many songs. And we don't do any, like, all of this thing that happened in this book could have been done at any haunted house. It did not have to be Hill House. I don't know why this one, of all things, was picked up to be I don't know why we picked this one to be official. Like, there are so many other Return to Hill Houses that are better, that just aren't official, but this one is, and it's not that great, but the cover is pretty. Like, they do a really good job with the cover. But they didn't do anything else. Like, they did a good job depicting the house, and that's really it. Next one. We read Hemlock Island. I have a whole little reading vlog for Hemlock Island with my unboxing of the spooky and sweet Once Upon a Book Club book boxes, but this one is a haunted island. I loved this one. I gave this one 5 stars. I loved this one. It was so good. It did pretty much everything the Haunting of Hill didn't do in this one, because we've got like familiar drama. No, I gave it 4 stars because there was one problem that I just remembered. We have this family drama, best friend drama thing going on as we go into this island. Okay, so our main character has a niece and has an ex-husband and has 2 ex-best friends, and one of those ex-best friends is the sister of her ex-husband, and the other best friend is a sister to a cop that comes onto the island. All of these people are important to our cast of characters as we go on to this island. Now, our main character, her ex-husband is, you know, rich boy money, CEO, big company, likes money, or not likes money, but has a lot of money. So for their wedding gift, he gifted her this island, their island getaway, and they built their own little home getaway on it. Now, since the divorce, she's just a teacher, and it's just after COVID times. They make it, you know, pandemic important in this book, like as a backstory, but not as like a forward story. Anyway, to make extra money and to afford the house on the island, she rents out the house on the island on Airbnb. Now, this has caused problems because one of their clients calls them. She's like, hey, there's a lot of blood in your closet and scratch marks, and we are leaving right now in the middle of the night. So she goes the next day with her niece to go check on it. Her not ex-best friend, but they're like on the outs ever since like she broke up with her husband, ex-husband, whatever. They show up to the dock that's going to take them to the island and find that her ex-husband is currently there waiting. So first to the island is our main girl, her niece, her ex-husband, and her best friend. And then, shortly after, our other ex-best friend shows up with her cop brother, and her cop brother just causes so much trouble, as does, you know, their ex-best friend drama, and then there's a bunch of other things going on. It is a horror kind of slasher thriller on this recluse island. I absolutely loved it. The descriptions were great. The trying to figure out what was going on was great. One thing that I hated was that everyone knew something that was secret about our main character, and they actively talked about it with us, the reader, looking over, but the author was like, the reader doesn't get to know it yet. And they do that like 4 times, and I did not like that. I think if we had figured out the secret that was going on in the beginning when we first talked about it, I think that would have been a great thing, especially to establish like motive and other things, to be like, maybe it's not supernatural. I think that would have been great. But otherwise, aside from keeping secrets from the reader, I really liked this book. And I suggest if you have the chance and want to read a haunted island story, this might be pretty good. Back into the romance, we read My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. Did I say that Kelly Armstrong wrote this one? Kelly Armstrong wrote this one. Anyway, Jenna Levine wrote My Roommate is a Vampire. Again, full reading vlog with the spooky, scariest Halloween box for Once Upon a Book Club. I enjoyed it. I read it in a day. I was very brain off when I read it, and I think that you should be very brain off when you read it. The ending is very silly. In fact, most of it is very silly, and the longer I sit on it, the more I'm just like, I don't think I ever need to pick this one up again. But we follow Cassie. She is an artist. She does modern art. And I don't know if the author even knows what modern art is based off of their descriptions, or if they just picked a specific one and was like, I actually relate to that one and we're going with it. I am not an artist, but I feel like it bordered the line of being, I feel like the art descriptions bordered the line of making fun of modern art and being really into modern art. Like, I could not tell. But we follow Cassie, who finds a Craigslist ad for a room with this weird boy, with this weird guy who listed it for $200 in the upper rich class end of Chicago. Now, she's like, that's a steal. I can put up with any creep for that. So she shows up, and we have an, oh my god, he's hot moment. Literally word for word, oh my god, he's hot. Anyway, we go through a miscommunication as we struggle to figure out that the roommate is a vampire. I don't think we should have hid it for as long as we did, considering it's the title. I would have liked more of Frederick's point of view, and I think we could have done a lot more with developing of the characters, and also with the plot of, hey, our vampire's been asleep for 100 years, and he needs someone to train him to be a 21st century boy. And I think if we had had more developing of the characters and more developing of their training and learning of him being like, hey, I was, you know, from 100 years ago, and I still have 100 years ago brain when it comes to things, then it would have been a lot better. Unfortunately, you really do have to, like, take yourself out of the real world to fully be okay with the subject, with, like, you really have to, like, expand. What is the term for being like, I don't believe it, you just have to take it for what it is. Like, you just have to take it for what it is, which is a cute, funny little thing that doesn't really do much and doesn't really say much, except it's cute and funny. And it tries to be really funny. And I think if we had tried to be a little more serious, it would have been a lot better. But it tries to be very funny. And very cute. Like, it's cute. It's a cute little read. Like, if you are a brain-off romance reader, go for it. The next book. We continue with the romance. Now, my indie book club My indie bookstore has more book clubs, and this was the first one for the Romance Erotica Book Club, Praise by Sara, Cate. This is a book that contains so much and yet not enough. Okay, so we follow Charlie, who is breaking up with this dude, is down on her luck, has a bad job and or no job. She goes to the dude's father to get her security deposit back, but the dude's father thinks that he's one of his subs. So he is like, why aren't you doing the things that all of my subs should be doing? And she gets herself in a really awkward position before they realize that she's there to pick up her half of the security deposit check. Now, dude, feeling so bad, is like, okay, well, I need to get close to my son because he doesn't like what I do for a living, which is running the Salacious Players Club, which is essentially like a Tinder app for kinky people. And he's also opening like a physical club that has rooms that can be used for sex. But you know, sex work is still illegal stupidly. So they have to do it under like loopholes and guises and things like that. Anyway, they don't really get much into the business or anything like that. We follow Charlie as she dates an older man who is also her ex-boyfriend's dad. Now, this is kind of pitched as if the sub-dom relationship and the age gap is the biggest kink of this book. Unfortunately, it is very basic sub-dom stuff. Like, we don't... I've read better fanfiction sub-dom relationships. This is more a, oh my god, I'm dating my ex-boyfriend's dad kink. Because they focus on that more than they do any of the other things that is wrong with their relationship. They don't really do any of that, like, secretary boss thing. Except for the end when they actually start doing that, but even then it's not like a thing. It's just like, oh, it's a sub-dom thing. It's not a secretary boss thing. They don't do much with the age gap except for, I thought it would bother me more, and it doesn't. Like, if you have never read if you have never read dom sub, it's fine. It's like a fine starter. If you don't like age gaps, I don't like age gaps. This doesn't do anything with the age gap. Like, I am not part of this genre too much, so I can't recommend better, but I know that there is better. I can recommend better fan fictions. And I only perused the Twilight and the Harry Potter ones. So, it was okay. The next thing I read was A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. This is the first in the Veronica Speedwell series, and if you've never heard about it, you probably don't watch Cate Coulson. She absolutely loves these. Based off the first book, I couldn't guess why. It was kind of dense, it was kind of boring, it was not mystery, and it was not romance, neither. Like, it was dense and it was boring, and it took me so long to read because I just could not get into it. We spent 100 pages out doing absolutely nothing that we could have done elsewhere, like the things that we figure out with the carnival scene, I feel like we could have done somewhere else when we were in London. Am I telling you anything about this book? No. Veronica Speedwell takes place in 1887 in England. She is just burying her aunt, and she comes home to find someone robbing her house, and then there's a baron who says, "You're in danger." And would you believe it? Veronica Speedwell never believes that she's in danger. Ever. Like, she gets into at least 4 or 5 things where people are actively trying to harm her and or take her away from where she currently is, and she doesn't believe that she's in danger. She's supposed to be smart. Anyway, she's very book smart. She gets dropped off with Stroker, who's also very book smart. Something happened in Stroker's past. I don't care enough to remember it, but he is like kind of a hermit now, or whatever. He lives off of the Baron, kind of, and does taxidermy work to try and get back his, I don't know. They are big into, Veronica Speedwell is a butterfly person. She likes butterflies. Anyway, the Baron is murdered shortly after he drops Veronica off at Stoker's place. Stoker, for some reason, thinks Veronica murdered him for far too long. And the London cops thinks that Stoker is the main person because Stoker is not his real identity, it is an alias. Anyway, they go through all of these things to not figure out who the actual murderer is. Like, if you want to figure out who done it, you have to wait basically until page 200 for them to return to the scene of the crime and them to actually start trying to solve the murder as opposed to accusing each other. It's also finally not even like 50 pages later, and even then I don't think Veronica fully realizes how much in danger she is until the very, very end, when everything is kind of like monologue. I don't know if it's monologued out. I gave up and started skimming. This was a book club pick as well. I went to this book club. This was the last thing I went to before I got sick. No one remembered the end. Everyone finished the book. No one remembered or even thought about the end. Like, it was not consequential. Everyone kind of thought it was okay. And I think it is okay. Will I continue it? I don't know. Honestly, I think I was a little too hyped for it. I don't know if I will continue it, but it was okay. Next one, we read the Creature collection done by Amazon Unlimited. I have a whole video about it right here. A little taste of a bunch of little authors. Not little, they're big authors, kind of. The Pram by Joe Hill, which I loved. The Anchor Snatcher by Grady Hendrix was okay, not that great. It Waits in the Woods by Josh Mallerman was amazing. In Bloom by Paul Tremblay was okay. Best of Luck by Jason Mott was again okay. And Big Bad by Chandler Baker was, I think, the best of the collection. Other people may disagree, but that's what I thought. The very last thing that we read was Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. This is my first time reading this book. I have seen the movie twice way long ago. I still remember it though. I remember it being cute. Now this, I know, takes a big deviation from the movie. I know why. Okay? Now people can say what they will. I think that Practical Magic is still a good movie, even saying that it's based off of this book that it was nothing like. I think it took the heart of it and did it well. This book I found a little boring, and I'm sorry to say that. It is very much a, quote, her gift of touching ordinary life as if it were with a wand, which I think is true. It's a very ordinary glance at a life that is somewhat not ordinary. I stopped reading. I DNF'd it. I'm going to say it's a soft DNF for now, but I wanted to read other things and stopped caring. So I still have the last part to read, which is kind of like, I guess, that, like, I skimmed it. I know what happens. It's like a culmination of everything else that had gone on that had just been like not cherry dropped, but like breadcrumbed to you. It's a little slow. I think some people will say that it's better to read in a day. Some people might say that it's better to read in chunks. I would be the one that says it's better to read in chunks. In fact, it might actually be a really good audio book to like put on and like have in the background. Is I think if I were to try and read this again, I would do an audiobook because it might be better that way. But we follow Sally and Jillian. I go back and forth between calling her Jillian and Gillian in my brain because that's how it works. So we follow Sally and Gillian, who were little orphan girls who were adopted by their aunts. Now, their aunt's house, basically witches. Like, they are, period. Done. So everyone in the town kind of avoided them, and both of the girls escaped in different ways. Jillian by running off to elope and then immediately divorcing, and she has like a major love life, in and out, blah, blah, blah. Sally wanting to have an ordinary life after her husband dies, and she's left with her 2 kids, and she doesn't want her 2 kids growing up the same way that she did, so she takes them to the regular suburbs. And all is fine and dandy for the most part until Jillian shows up and she's like, hey Sally, I accidentally killed my current boyfriend and we're on the run. And then it goes from there as they try and pick up their lives and try and like rekindle their relationship as sisters and also figure out the growing up of the little girls and all of that. It's very passive. That's the best way to put it. Like, the writing is passive. How they're going through life is passive. Like, it is a passive experience, which is why I think it being an audiobook in the background would be a good way to read it, because it is just a passive story. You just pass right over it. Now, a lot of things do happen, and it is very interesting. I just wish that it was a little more active tone. Now, is this because it's an older book with an older writing style? Maybe. I thought the writing was very pretty. I just wish that we'd picked up the pace a little bit more. So I stopped reading it so I could read other things. And that was my October. And that was my October. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. What did you read this October? Was it better than me? I think mine was an okay, like, I like to look back and think that it was a good October for reading, and I think it's just because it was decently diverse, and I did have, like, things that I loved and things that I didn't love, but I didn't have anything that I actively hated, which was great. It was just things that I was like, this is whatever, you know. No, I actively hated A Haunting on a Hill. I actively hated that. Anyway, that was everything. What did you read? Have you read any of the books that I read? Were you equally as disappointed in A Haunting of a Hill as I was? Anyway, that's everything. My name's Francesca, and remember, we are all in progress. Goodbye.